you say that it's a fairly obvious opportunity within professional education, though? I mean, if you have people in sort of business consultancy, analyst type roles within an organisation, it's a very obvious thing to encourage them to think about why they're doing it as well as what they're going to do, which is essentially what we're talking about. So it's for me, the BCS aspect of this has to be, we as a profession should be making sure that we look after our own, just as marketing or finance or any other functional roles within the business do. So it should be assumed from the start that you're a potential CIO. That's why you're doing it.
And just to follow up that, now on campus, I've just been asked to join the BCS Academy of Computing because there's a disconnect in BCS. Because the educational benchmark is actually pure computer science. It's not actually about the use of technology in the real world. It's pure computer science. And actually, you can't take a BCS accredited computer science degree and map it to Sophia very easily. Because Sophia is competence, it's practice. The two don't actually align. So actually that's one of the things we're looking at is we might actually need a new academic benchmark, which is IT. Because the benchmark at the moment is computer science. But computer science is a valid discipline.
Yeah, but it isn't at sea level.
But it's not this.
No.
Well, it's just like audit or engineering. They're all valid disciplines.
Yeah. It's a perfectly valid discipline, and actually a lot of the schools work we've been doing, we've said actually there are three different types of IT. If you break ICT down, so the big Royal Society report's been done, you've got digital literacy, which everybody should have. That's a core thing from age 5 in schools now. Everybody should have digital literacy. That was the core of the GCSE curriculum until recently. There is the use of embedded technology, the use of technology to do things. That's IT. And then there's pure computer science. And actually pure computer science is a specialist discipline. And actually it's reflected in the structure we have in the university. We have a computer science department and we have a comms and systems department. Comms and systems are very driven by users, by the psychology of technology, the application of technology. All of the work that I've just talked about actually all comes from the communication systems department, not from computer science. So there are three very different aspects to the industry, and this is what the BCS Academy has now recognised, that actually there needs to be three different separate streams of work.
Most good engineering degrees include a management module in more conventional.
Yeah, there isn't actually a place for that in the current computing benchmark. And I think that's the discussion we're now having, is that actually that needs to change.
It's really about learning from other chartered engineering disciplines, isn't it?
But it's still a very immature industry that's developing.
In one of your earlier slides, you mentioned the role of the CEO is to impart knowledge. Where does the ensuring understanding fit in?
The CIO needs to be able to needs to have sufficient skills to understand the technology they're engaging with, to be able to do that learning process. I think this is why I always think the body of knowledge is quite important, because you should have a broad view of technology before you can actually see how it fits and how it supports the business. So it's not just a small piece of technology. You actually need to have a fairly broad understanding of technology to be able to see the impact of technology.
You need to understand what it can do.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily need to know how it works.
No, you don't need to understand how technology functions.
Yeah, but you need to know how that will impact on your business and what it can do. I'm just, as an aside, talking about sort of the educational process. I was listening to a very interesting program not so long ago on Radio 4 that talked about the technology generation, the inbuilt ability to know how to use technology without reading an instruction manual, from children now who just know instinctively how technology works and how it works for them. And that's very important when you're looking at the educational process from the very start.
Yeah, the digital natives, it's one of those horizon issues
Yeah.
at the beginnings.
Yeah.
Actually, it's why we've made the shift in technology that we've made. Because actually students coming through now actually already know how to use this technology. Trying to put a PC in front of them, it's almost not worth doing anymore. Because actually it's easier just to say, here's the website to go and start your course, here's your login, start, and they'll do it. You don't need to say anything more about technology now.
Is there something around the role too that talks about emerging thinking around the soft skills required from a CIO as well, rather than pure technical discipline?
Hopefully that the behavioural competencies, that's the softer element. Because actually, if, let's skip forward to that. The soft this is faster. This actually, quite a lot of those. If you look at the general soft skills training providers, what are they teaching most of the time? Well, actually, a lot of it is team leadership, organisation development, collaboration. It's in there. That's the behavioural aspect of the role. So this is where when you're building a Sophia job description, you've got to have the professional competencies, the behavioural competencies, and the underpinning knowledge. But a lot of focus is put on either the underpinning knowledge or the behavioural. You've actually got to build the whole picture before you have a rounded role. And how you learn that will come from different places. Some of the underpinning knowledge should hopefully come from core education. Professional competencies largely come from actually doing the role. Behavioural competencies should be things that you've picked up through education or from your experience or from training.
Can I just make an anecdotal comment? Charles Chang, he came as a speaker for the BCS on one occasion, and it was a soft skills presentation he was doing. From the membership of the actual BCS, it was one of the worst attended meeting audiences. However, from the other institutes that come along, these secretaries, there was more women in that room that night than we've ever had. No disrespect to anybody, but so I think that there is or for them certainly, there was not a realisation that soft skills were important amongst the people that we normally get along.
Yeah, and yet when the CIO Exec Council did their survey of CIOs, they came out with the behavioural competencies and the differentiators. That's what makes a really good CIO.
Certainly as a practitioner, it's that side that it is all about the outward facing and then the reflection back.
Yeah.
It's a leadership, that's the challenge.
I'm very conscious that Ken's been on his feet for well over an hour now, so we'd probably better call things to a close. Does anybody have one last burning question? In which case...
Sorry.
That's not quick enough.
I was just going, you talked about obviously the fact that ICT has dropped off a cliff for 12 years or whatever. So going back, if we go back to the pull that at the end of the day we need to start developing CIOs from the ground up effectively, how big a chasm is there between in those 12 years, and how quickly can we make that up to start pulling people through?
If I just go to the raw data that we've got, it's a huge gap. There basically isn't a pool now to pull up. It's absolutely minimal. If we start looking at what's really needed in these types of frames, this is why I've been looking at this to say, what do we actually really need to do, particularly as education providers? What should we be thinking about? From the practice point of view, what's really going on, rather than what we think of purely from an academic discussion, but what's really needed in the industry. Programs that cover this type of thing could be put in place quickly. There's nothing new in here. We're not creating curriculum that doesn't exist. It's just, it's not all in one place. So to deliver a program that covers all of this, actually you've got to cover business topics, you've got to cover the softer skills. The biggest difficulty I've had is things like service management. You try and find a service management undergraduate course, or a course that even refers to service management. I know of 2 in the whole of the UK, and both of them have only started in the last 6 months. Okay, there's a core fundamental element about it, but it could be put in place fairly easily because this is all well understood. But there is a huge deficit.
So does that mean what we need is a new way of packaging education?
That's a leading question.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.